Hey, what's up, man? So glad y'all joined us today. You in for a treat. We're going to have a panel discussion to answer some questions, talk about some topics that you've actually brought to us. And these topics are really good for all of us men to hear, so make sure you stay with us and join us. It's going to be good. Hey, what's up, guys? Again, make sure you subscribe, hit the like button like you've been doing. We're thankful for everybody who participates in our podcast because it helps us get the word out. We just want to help all men everywhere be what God wants them to be and have success in their life. So today I am joined by Todd Goodwin. He's a pastor here at Resurrection Life. We're also joined by Cody Guidry and Micah Hickman. And they're part of our Kingsman leaders who help in our little small groups of men we get together. And man, it's been really good and they're doing a great job. So guys, great to have y'all.
Glad to be here.
Yep.
I'm pumped.
Yeah, I'm excited. We've been having a little podcast going already, a lot of discussion already. It's been really good. So first of all, I want to just jump into something we just talked about a little bit. I'm gonna point the question to Todd for real quick. One of the questions was about relationships and how important they are and how as men, because men seem to have a tough time having tight relationships with each other. Yeah. And so I just want to point that question to you, was ask how do we form those relationships? What ways can we do that?
Well, first of all, being the old guy in the group, one of the things that growing up, you are kind of like what your dad was, and your dad was like his dad, so forth and so on. My dad was very not relationship averse, but he just didn't get real close to people, right? Just because that was the world he grew up in. Men were men, and we didn't need anybody. But as I've gotten older, I realized about 10 years before my dad passed away, the Lord told me, says, you really need to tell your dad that you love him. My dad never told me that before. So I really pushed it, and and one day I called him up. One day I was living in Alabama. I said, before I got off the phone, I said, I just want you to know I love you. And I know I could see him in my mind. My dad was on the phone. I could just see him going, me too. And he hung up the phone. And over probably the next year, I started talking to him, and every conversation at the end of it, we both said, I love you. And for me, that was going, you know what? I don't have to be afraid to be honest, especially with people that are close to me. Right. Now, I'm not just saying that everybody's close to me. I don't just run out and tell everybody that. But the people that are close to me and building relationships with other men take time. Yeah. And I'm not saying that I don't necessarily want those relationships, but we need those relationships. Absolutely. We get to the point to where, I don't mind hanging out with guys.
Yeah, absolutely. I know come with relationships, you have to deal with people. You got to deal with people who are like you, imperfect. And I know Pastor, he's been preaching a lot about this lately, dealing with prayer, but talking about how important it is to have relationships and how we need each other. And I think about what the Bible said, the first thing that God said is not good was that men not be alone. And he's been bringing up about how the devil is always trying to get us men alone and convince us that we need to be isolated because it seems to be easier, right? And but we know what kind of problems that brings to us when the devil gets us isolated. So again, I'll turn to you, Michael. You talk about this for a second. We were just talking about it, about how we've even seen just in the recent times with our Kingsman groups of what it does when we can get together and kind of sharpen one another.
Dude, what? I mean, it's been awesome. Our group's been awesome. And it's, we have 7 people, and it's really people starting to open up and you get some views. One things that I've loved is, we don't call them old, we call them seasoned vets, our wiser members, you know what I'm saying?
We're
I mean, they pull, and what was one thing is some of their stories that they've came through, you're like, wow. Like,
gives you hope.
It does, right? And that's the biggest thing for me. Like, if I can take your hope, as a football coach, if I can take your hope, it's over. Yeah. Like, I don't want to just beat you. I want there to be no hope of ever,
winning.
That's right. And so one of the things, with ours, we started building, and we had somebody that we came to for prayer, and I just felt like, I was like, you know what? I watched my mom do it, and she was, look, if somebody had a prayer, hey, everybody stand up, let's pray. Right now. But I felt like, look, man, if we're going to stand together, we're going to stand together.
Yep. Yeah.
And, it's a little uncomfortable. There's some people that are a little bit older than I am, but it is what it is. So we stood up, we prayed over it, prayed for the situation, and it didn't go as hoped. Didn't go as hoped. And I was like, man, God, come on, man.
But
Come on. Well, so we kept praying.
There's a but.
okay, I know
There is a but. There is a but. We kept praying and we kept encouraging him, and he shared some stuff. And hey, here's how we fight our fights. Like, one thing that Dad always said that struck me that I've kind of gotten a lot better with is, you got a choice. The Lord will let you defend you, but that's all you get. Or we can stay the course and we can stay humble. God, I trust you. I'm going to trust you. Do you really trust me? Do you really trust? Because it's going to open up a path that we couldn't even know to pray or ask for.
Yeah.
I couldn't even know a marriage that you couldn't even know could be fixed. And so, I mean, just something, and that's what, look, I talked to, we cried together, we prayed, we're like, God, and I even personally said, God, this isn't like a seasoned Christian that we're talking to.
Right.
Somebody that's used to, God has a will and he has like, this is a real situation.
Right. Needs to see.
He needs to know you're here. Yeah. And man, we got a phone call. I got a phone call last night, and dude, I got chills now thinking about it. It was just cool because he texted me. He was like, call me now. I was like, oh gosh. I got this sick feeling in my stomach. I called him, and dude, he shared a testimony. Not only did God answer prayers, exceeding and abundantly, fixed a situation we didn't even ask him to fix, changed something that even out of his mouth, look, I'm not expecting that. I just want this. So in staying diligent, I'm telling you, I got chilled because it is a miracle. Like I thought about it the other night. Elisha always walks around singing the song, God's still doing things. He's still making moves. And I was just like, bro, what? Like real life, real relationship. But what's cool is the relationship, I think I was more excited.
Yeah, come on.
I swear to you, I know that it's not a selfish thing, but I had chills. I told my wife, I was like, you are not going to believe this. Let's go. I was in my kid's room yelling like, bro, let's go.
God actually did what he said he was going to do.
And did it in a way like we were praying for this thing.
Right.
Come on. He went above.
And then he did that and more.
And more.
Right.
And bro, I was I kind of was tearing up talking to him because he was like, all I heard was he just said, Micah, God answered my prayers and I didn't even know to pray it. I was bro.
That's awesome.
He knows what you need even before you know what you need.
And the coolest part and I'll hammer with your relationship is not only did that relationship, I believe, him being in obedience to what God, coming to a group, opening up, which is
making yourself vulnerable.
Dude, we don't like the V word. We don't like that vulnerability.
We don't
the
like
V word and the R word, vulnerability and responsibility. But him doing that and allowing us as men to come up and lock our shields and create that wall.
Right.
Not only was he blessed, but dude, I'm going to tell you, I don't know about you. I was blessed.
Oh, come on, man.
Dude,
I took a lap.
I was looking at the house. I was like, somebody give me a water pistol, bro. I'm like, I'm ready to go.
Yeah, that was awesome. But you think about that relationship formed in a Kingsman group.
That's right.
And if we didn't have, he said out of his own mouth before that prayer, before that took place, and this is what humbled me, was that he was looking at us and said, I can have that. I can have, in other words, that brought hope.
Yeah.
Because imperfect people like us, we have things because God's given them us and he could do it for him. What God did for us could do for him. And just being able to have that relationship brought him out. I just thought about how different that situation would be, man. I started tearing up thinking, God, how different that situation would have been if we weren't there.
Yeah.
And men weren't encouraging, hey, stay humble, trust God, don't retaliate. Don't fight fire with fire.
Yeah.
Just let God vindicate you. And him had the faith to go through it. And now, like you said, now it's made all of us closer.
Yeah.
Going through that.
It's a shared experience.
It's a shared experience.
It is.
Seeing what God does. And that's what creates relationships. So Cody, you think about I know you're over one of the Kingsman groups and we've kind of seen that in you, and you're a single guy. Yeah. So in that sense, what do you think is one of the things as men that we do struggle with having a relationship with, being, I guess we'd say intimate, but have that close relationship and share things that we wouldn't normally share with other guys?
I guess for me, we had a discussion on Wednesday night and we had maybe about 16 guys there. And I was like, as a single person looking at a lot of married people,
Right.
married men, I'm like, you have people that are looking to you and saying, is that something that I even want?
Come on, man.
Like, are you displaying something that I would want? Like, do I want to be married? Because I see these relationships. And so for me, like the biggest thing is just like honesty and just being transparent. I don't think that men always do a good job at being transparent with what's going on in their lives because
Absolutely not.
because you're men and we're men and we don't feel like we need to do that. And so it's easier to put up a wall instead of being like, this is what's going on in my life.
Right.
And having someone to come alongside you and help.
Right. We don't feel like we really need other men. So there's no sense in sharing our vulnerability.
Yeah.
There's the V word again.
Well, and I'll say this, and you, I mean, boy, you want to talk about stingers? Like, we're what 3 years apart, 2 years apart, so we're very close in age. And so when you say something like, "Okay, I'm looking at, do you have something?" Your marriage that I want or that I would want to be. And so I'm sitting there, I'm like, ooh, you.
Well.
Like, and then the vulnerability though is, and this is where I may, y'all may differ. My vulnerability is different than my wife's vulnerability.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Like when I hear,
Because you're
I
two
think,
different people.
yeah, well, I mean, just like what we said earlier, daddy love and mama, it's both love.
Yeah.
My mom's love, I'm just going to let you know, is vastly different than my father's
Oh,
love.
okay.
Yeah.
Now, are they equally as much? Oh my God,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I never question. But I feel like
How it's implemented is completely different.
the vulnerability thing is bingo. Implementate. It's thrown around like you should be vulnerable. I'm just letting you know, like I'm not being like that vulnerable.
Right.
Nope.
Yeah.
But our vulnerability, it's okay, but a man's is different than a woman's. It's not going to be a heartbreak session.
No,
you know?
it doesn't need to be. It's supposed to be different.
I don't typically just pour my heart out going,
Right.
"Let's switch about how I feel." And I'm
in a
going, I don't
bathroom
care how you feel.
That's right.
I don't care. That's too much emotion.
That's
I thought
right.
she was a drama queen.
That's right.
Well, and I also
I'm a
think
drama
that,
queen,
That's right.
but I'm not empathetic, because that's what it is. It's a
You know,
difference.
but like our vulnerability may not be my feelings. It's like, bro, I'm freaking floundering at work.
Yeah.
You know, I'm floundering. I can't do anything right. And then all of a sudden,
Yeah, it's just
dude,
honest.
You can do it.
but that's vulnerable to me
Right.
because
That's
I'm
it.
never going to admit that I can't. Like, if you put that job in front of me, I was raised. Look, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
If you have a job, you do it to the best of your ability. You remember who you are. You remember what your last name is. And we get done. If we shake hands and say we're going to do it,
Right.
that's what we
right.
do. We're Hickmans.
Yeah.
We honor our work. And so there's nothing wrong with being like that.
Right.
But when that feeling of overwhelming comes and you're like,
Who do you go to?
There you go.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. That's the
And
that's the question.
We don't build those relationships because we're afraid that people aren't going to accept us. First of all, my Father God has accepted me. Boom. That's really all I need.
That's
I
right.
said, but it's not. I do need other people. And I don't just throw my feelings and my vulnerability out to everybody. There's a few people that I really do. And then I got off the phone with somebody earlier. I go, hey, this is where I'm at, bro. I need you to help me out here.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Because I could be honest with him without him going, oh man, you're struggling, or you're not a real man.
Yeah.
You know, I'm like, he knows I am, and I know he is.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it. But I was able to call him just boom when I needed him, and him do the same to me.
Yeah.
But that's a close relationship.
And I think that's the difference. Like with women, it's going to be these long, hour-long sessions of a heartbreak story, but sometimes all the guy just
emotions.
need is like, hey, I am overwhelmed right
Yeah.
now,
And
and,
just-
I just need some support.
Just knowing somebody's there.
All right.
Absolutely.
I'm with you. You go, good, thanks. That's all I need.
That's
Yeah.
it. Just
Let's
knowing
go.
somebody's with
That's
you.
right.
It goes back to the beginning. We was talking about in our Kingsman when we come here, like it's not us share. We even said that it's not being all dramatic, sharing sob stories, but it's just knowing, just like we talked about the movie 300 and all them guys
That's
are
right.
together. I got somebody with me,
Yeah.
right? And that's a common theme that you see amongst men, whether it's some kind of group or brotherhood, or it's a team, or it's the military, or whatever it is, whatever organization you're part of. You just want to know that somebody's there with you.
Yeah.
And I think Dad said it Sunday, just to that, I think Dad said it Sunday or
He did.
somebody, maybe I did. And one of the most powerful stories that I share in the book, like a memory that I will never forget is, dude, you ain't got to say nothing. Just be there.
Yeah.
That's right.
I mean, the first time I ever questioned my ability to do what I loved and be who I was supposed to be, Dad didn't say a word.
Yeah.
I mean, I was mentally in here. I was like, dude, I don't think I can do that. Like, I can't. They're expecting me to be there. I can't. And man, all he did, he just put his arm around me and he stood right. And from that moment, boom, it's going to be all right.
Yeah.
Like, as a guy, hey,
It's huge, man.
let's go.
You know, you got somebody like bearing one of those burdens. They know a lot of times people don't even have to tell you the burden. You see,
That's right.
But you're there to help support them.
Yeah.
I know Todd brought it up with his dad earlier. I had a situation. I think sometimes being vulnerable just is admitting that we're weak. Like just admitting that I need help with something. It's not like I really got to go out and share a whole lot. But I think you brought up the thing about God. He accepts everybody. But you know, for me, I grew up that old school man philosophy. You don't cry. You don't tell somebody, you know, if there's a wall I'm gonna climb, I just gotta figure out I can't do this, can't do that. In other words, you feel like that's a great mantra, but like the reality is we're limited.
Yeah.
And I had to get to that place. That's why I struggled even in my relationship, like surrendering my life to God and trusting Him, because I always wanted to do it myself. And until I got to that weak spot where I was weak, where I was broken, that's when I realized, oh, I do need God. And then I realized, wait, I can trust God. And the thing is, we're not going to be vulnerable with everybody. We're not going to just form these tight relationships. And like that friend who called you, you got to know you can trust them.
Yeah.
I mean, every relationship's
That's
trust.
right.
And that takes time.
It takes
See,
time.
but
It takes
I
being
think
there.
there's two things, and is need and trust the same thing to you?
No.
Not even
Absolutely. Not
night
even
and
close.
day. Like, I can realize I need God, let's not say God, because I do need Him. I do trust. Let's go. I can realize I need Cody,
Yeah.
but I don't know if I trust you.
Yeah.
I can need you and need you to perform like at work.
Yeah.
But how do you get that trust?
That's what but the trust part where, you mean I actually can trust you with my finances when I took a $50,000 pay cut and my wife's not working and our bills exceeded what we're coming in for a year and a half, and I'm going through every retirement, every saving, and I'm down to my last $100 in my savings. You mean I can trust you? Because that's the point. That was like that's one thing. It was cool. You like, God brought you to that brokenness.
Yeah.
And I was like, God, why are you punishing me? Why are you hammering me? Like, this is not fair.
What we see as punishment, God sees as brokenness. Right. It's a big difference.
Right.
Brokenness leads to, and that's what I felt like you told me one time. I wrote it down. I have it highlighted. Brokenness leads to obedience.
Yeah.
God, I want to obey your word. But if I don't feel like I can't do it and He can do it, I'm gonna do it because I'm like you. Like, watch me.
Right.
All my life, people, you're too slow. Do this. Too short. Do this. Watch me. Okay.
God, I'll obey you if I agree with you.
That's right.
I'll obey you if I can't do it. I'll obey you. We have this long list of things like, yes, God, I will, but, or, and. It's just either you trust Him or you don't. And if you say you do, He's going to get you in a place where you're going to trust Him. How do I know that? I'm 58 years old.
Yeah.
That's why.
You know from experience.
End of
I
discussion.
have daughters.
58.
You know, I've been in ministry for that long. I'm like, I've learned, like, yes, Lord, and it's not that He's trying to harm us, not that He's trying to put us in a bad situation. And this is what God told me. He goes, I see something in you that you don't see. So I'm going to put you in these positions, and it's going to come out in you. And I'm like, oh, well, I didn't know that was there. And God's like, I did.
Well, I mean,
Same thing as a coach does in you. He sees something in you that you don't see in yourself, but He puts you out on that field and He makes you run through this stuff, and you're like, I didn't know I had that in me. But He did. God knows. Go ahead.
Which is so cool because, like, even before we started the life groups for the Kingsman, like Remo kept asking me about it, and I was like, "Oh, let me think about this. I don't know if I can do this," and I still don't feel like I by myself am equipped to do it.
Yeah.
But every week we've shown up, and it's like it just flows, and it just it makes itself work out, and it's just been really cool to see that play out, even in the lives of the men that are showing up.
That's right.
Amen.
I mean, I know I'm leaving encouraged every week, so I know they are too.
Oh, for sure.
And you're going, did I even do anything?
Yeah.
I'm just here, and God just used you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
that's
right.
how it works. That trust, though, what are you thinking about? One of the biggest obstacles to trust, I believe, is pride, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what we're talking about here, you talk about, the Bible says, humble yourself like a little child and you come to him. Well, see, a child, they're humble enough to say, okay, we talk about the need word, but it's bigger than just need. When I'm humbled, I trust that person.
Yeah.
And so that, in my view, that humility is such a key to a relationship sometimes, and trust. When you talking about your dad, it brought me to remember an instance with my own dad, who I've never seen cry ever. And he's never really, at that moment in time, ever said the I love you word. Same kind of situation. And I had just failed out of college. I'm back home. I'm kind of that broken state. And I had just gave my life to Jesus. Jesus changed me, saved me.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm in that new walk. And man, I'm just living in a humbled state. It's not anymore I can. It's
That's
what
right.
he can.
That's right.
And as I was walking through this and I was about to get married, my dad was helping me do some stuff, and we was just working outside. And the guy just hit me again. Like, I just wanted to stop him and look him in the eyes and say, Dad, I want you to know I love you and I thank you. Well, I stopped him. I grabbed him on his shoulder like this. He turned around. I said, Dad, I just need to talk to you. And he's like, well, what is it? And he could tell I was like a little choked up. So he's like, well, what is it? He's getting all worried. And I'm like, I just want to tell you I love you. And he's like, okay, I know that, son. I know that. And I'm like, no, I love you. And I want to thank you for helping me and doing. I've wasted so much as you've done for me. Anyway, by the time I was done, he barely got the I love you too out. But he started, you could see him wanting to cry, but he had to hide it from me. He turned away.
Yeah.
But it broke down a wall, a stronghold, I call it, something the devil had on our relationship. And that humility is what broke down, because God gives grace to the humble.
Yeah.
And I think when we can humble ourselves in certain situations in the relationship, that's where those walls come down, that we can have the relationship.
That's good.
That's right.
So I want to move on real quick from relationships, and we'll probably get into it as we talk about other things. But one of the biggest questions that we had was, men, we deal with temptation, obviously. And so talking about, even in this context where we're talking about relationships and how even that helps, how we overcome temptation. So I'll start with you again, Todd, on that's a big general subject we talk about for a whole year, but just hit some high points of what off the top of your head, young men struggling, this temptation, what temptations
one of the things
are.
recently in the Lord's Prayer, Brother Allen brought out, and was, lead us not into temptation.
Yeah.
And I've really never prayed. I mean, I've prayed that, it sounds good, but I'm just like, Lord, help me not be tempted.
Yeah.
Right.
And I'm like, no. Lord, lead me in such a way that temptation is not even a factor.
Yeah.
Because first of all, I'm not putting myself in those positions. And I think we wind up putting ourselves in positions where we are tempted. Yeah. Yes, today's culture, in today's world, you don't have to look for temptation. It comes looking for you.
Absolutely.
Especially us as men. I mean, I could talk about, and we'll talk about that later, pornography. Yeah. And, but temptations are there, and they're coming after you. So I'm like, Lord, lead me not into temptation. Help me not even that's not even an option. Yeah. One of the things I used to tell my girls, I said, and if you ask them nowadays, and they're both grown adults, and if you ask them, I go, what kind of people do drugs? And they won't even think twice about it. They go, stupid people do. Now, a lot of people go, that's horrible. I can't believe you said that. I said, I don't care. I don't care what you think about me. I'm thinking about my daughters. And I said, today they'll say that. Today.
Oh, wait till I see Bethany. First question I ask her,
what kind of people do drugs? She'll go, stupid people. But here's my point was, I wanted them to not even have that as an option.
That's right.
And we think temptation is an option.
Yeah.
Well, it's an option. It's one of the things on the table. No, it's not even on the table. Yeah. Sorry, I started preaching.
No, it's great.
But okay, let me ask from a younger, wasn't Jesus tempted?
He was. Yeah. So lead me not into temptation.
That's
a big difference.
I don't think we're going to avoid
temptation.
But the question would be, because I think with a lot of people,
how do you deal with it?
How we deal with it, because it is there. Mm-hmm. And I think, and I heard you say this a little bit, and this is what was on my mind. A lot of what we talk about temptation, it's it's kind of like the fireproof movie. If you're dealing with stuff you're watching on the internet, then throw the computer out and break it with a bat. Well, that sounds good. But everybody's got a cell phone. You can see it right here. So what do you do? You know, and well, we need to pray. Well, praying is number one. I mean, that's our weapon. And like he said, lead us not. And I think what that means is the Bible talks about flee fornication. It says resist the devil. I think a lot of times, I guess I'll put it this way. I had a guy pastor one time. He just overcome alcoholism. I mean, he overcame it, man. He was a true alcoholic. He overcame it. He was doing great. And he's back with his wife. Everything's good, going great. And they was going to have a crawfish boil thing at this bar, right, near where the church. And he said, yeah, man, I'm going to this crawfish boil. And I said, you talking about the one over here? And he said, yeah. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, I'm not going to drink. I'm not nothing wrong with that. I said, man, it's not about what's wrong or right.
Yeah.
You know, and I think we do that a lot of times. It's like, well, I won't get burnt by the fire, but let me see how close I can stick my hand to it.
You've already made it okay in here.
Well, we have this ability to justify anything that we want.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
Well,
That's our fallen human nature.
It's like that temptation was there,
Yeah.
and he knew it was lurking, but he said, let me see how close I can get to it. You know?
Yeah.
It's like I heard about that police officer one time said, I've quit donuts. He quit donuts. He didn't want to eat donuts anymore. And he finally was getting to him, man. It'd been like 2 months he had a donut. And he said, you know what? If there's a parking spot outside that donut shop, that means God wants me to have a donut.
Right. That's right. God wills it.
God wills the donut.
He wills the donut.
And guess what happened?
In my hand.
After 20 times around the block, he found a parking spot. You will
20 times.
yourself in, right?
What?
So my thing is this is what I personally believe is, what about in helping men creating boundaries?
Mm-hmm.
And see, that's a word we don't like, because it goes back to what we're talking about. That means we're limited, okay? And boundaries, like creating boundaries. So let's talk about that for a second, Michael. You creating boundaries, how that can help us deal with temptation.
And that's what I mean. First of all, I've never heard anybody say it like that. Like lead me in such a way.
Yes.
That's good. Gonna steal that.
Yeah. Yes.
I stole something a couple of months ago because I'd heard my biggest thing the last few months has been the Lord's Prayer, like our Father art in heaven. We've said it. We've said it.
Sounds good.
But it does. It does.
Yeah.
It sounds cool. He's like, thy kingdom comes. So one thing the guy started challenging, he said, I dare you. Ask God, what does your kingdom look like today? And let me take one step towards it. That's it. God, he said, let your prayer legit. If you want a relationship with the Lord and you want to build it and you want to grow in trust, just ask God, just that one. Don't move on to anything else in the Lord's Prayer.
Yeah.
Just, God, what does your kingdom look like today? And I want to take one step towards it.
Come on.
And so I'd been like, okay, because that goes right along with the kingdom doesn't look like, doesn't look like that. So,
I don't go down that road.
there's this really cool conviction thing and conviction isn't bad, right? I mean, it's not bad.
Conviction's good.
It's very, it's very healthy for me. It's very healthy for me because I'm, sometimes I need a little
convinced.
sometimes I need a little bit of that. But how does it look like today for us? What was the question? I'm sorry. I went off of that.
No, just talking about boundaries. Because I think a lot of times we say, okay, we need to pray, we need
think
each
boundaries
other, we need
hinder us.
accountability. Right.
So right off the bat, I'll go ahead and give you right off the bat one thing that I had somebody show me and I thought was a good idea, and I try to do it now. But like his wife in my phone is Todd's wife, Nina.
Yeah.
It is, like anybody knew that I
So-and-so's
have.
wife.
It is
Absolutely.
their husband's wife,
Absolutely.
then her name.
Because you're setting up yourself boundaries.
I am actively trying to say this is Remo's wife. So if I'm gonna go down some type of like popping up on my phone, that notification is gonna be Remo's wife. Remo's wife. You know what I'm saying? Like I mean, we're immediately that makes me feel uncomfortable now. I mean, you start thinking about this, it's just so I'm setting a boundary, but if you don't know, and here's what I'll say, it starts here. And one of the biggest things that I could share that, one of my personal testimony is lust is lust. It gets placed on, well, lust is just sexual thing. No, it's not. It's not lust for food, lust for clothes, lust for money.
It's selfishness.
I struggled with the latter. I want to be that guy. Like I know what the work it entails.
Yeah.
You know, like younger, you see the grind and like, I love the grind. I want the grind. Like, just put it on me. Let's see. But I also want that ladder in a hurry. You did it in 5 years, I'll do it in 2. You do it. That's a lust thing. Like lust is just, it's selfishness. And one of the things that I think Dan actually shared when he was like, dude, just name it what it is. It's you. And I was like, well, you ain't gonna talk to me like that. You know what I'm saying? Like, it ain't me. I got a problem. He's like, yeah, you. Yeah. You're the problem. I was like, no, I'm a good guy. I'm a good guy. Yeah, I'm a good guy. I'm not. He was like, no, bro. You're like, we can talk about all these pretty little things that you want to talk about lust. You want to talk about porn. You want to talk about your job. It's you. Yeah. And I was like, oh, this is not really a feel good session. Like, I don't feel. But the thing is, he was like, the moment. As long as you keep pointing, oh, well, God, it's this alcoholism, or God, I'm addicted to sweets, or God, I'm a workaholic, or I'm a porn. And like, you keep doing that, you got a hold of what it really is.
Well, look at who's the common denominator?
Me. Well, that's the same thing he said. I'm like, look, this is supposed to be about helping me feel good about my problems. But the real thing is like, until you tell God, right, I need you. He was like, because let's be honest. Right. He said, do you think you're stronger than Satan? I'm like, I mean, no. No. He was like, okay, well, the moment you keep holding it back from God, you're saying, God, I got this. Okay. You can have all these other little ugly things. Yeah. Like, but the biggest thing with boundaries is understanding who sets them. God does. And he said, the moment you need to go and say, I give it all, me, my wife, my relationship, my kids, my mind, my thought process, my desires for my job, my desires financially, my desires for my kid. Okay, well, now you're talking about, wait a minute, because that's in my control, right? Kids, you said it earlier. You are your dad, you are your kid. No, whoa, I control how my kid, or I can try to control how my, no, you can't. And that's the thing that God was like, it's like whack-a-mole, son, just doink, 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 doink. And it's one of those things where, dude, I had to give it in the moment. He kept breaking me and kept bringing me down, not in a bad way.
Yeah. It's a brokenness.
To understand what did obedience, because I wasn't giving it. Yeah. I wasn't giving it, but one of the things all right, God, you want it? And I grabbed some of my hair out of my own hair. I was like, take it. And I started asking, you be bigger. Yeah. I need you to be bigger than me. And physically, because I'm not, the temptation part, the lust part, I mean, let's be real. If you really give your heart to it, if you really give your mind to it, like as a guy, and I mean, I could be pretty good. We can undress you in about a minute and know probably thought-wise what we need to say to get that person to be interested in us. Yeah, it's like a crapshoot, son. It's easy. Yeah. It's easy. Yeah. That's why they say, what are we going out looking tonight for, boys? Well, daddy issues.
I think as followers of Jesus, we need, this is something God told me years ago, as followers of Jesus, Cody has a relationship with God. Ryan you have a relationship with God. That's going to look different when God tells you how to do certain things. Yeah. Like one of the things early on, when I got in ministry 40 years ago, a long time ago, I was 18. He said, you need to pre-decide some things before they ever happen, because they will. So I made a decision to never, ever be alone with another woman that wasn't my wife. Yes. I wasn't married at that time. And one of the other ones is that if a woman ever comes on to me, to immediately tell my wife and then tell whoever my overseer was. Yeah. Well, I made that decision 20 years, now 40 years ago. Yeah. But about 23 years into ministry, that happened. Yeah. Somebody came on to, I was counseling, I thought I was, but obviously she didn't take it that way. And she made a comment back that was extremely, extremely inappropriate. And before I knew it, I had called my wife, told her what happened. I was in the office of my overseer telling him what happened. And with an instant, it just shut down like that. And I thought back, I'm like, oh, I don't even remember making that decision. And guy goes, you did 20-something years earlier.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's good.
But I never had to act on that decision until that day.
And
kinda
that's
how
what we mean
dads-
by a boundary. You basically
Yeah.
drew a line in the sand and
Yeah.
said, "This. I'm committing to this. I'm not going
I
past
didn't
that
live.
line."
I didn't live close to the line either.
Exactly.
Because most
That's
people
what a
go,
boundary is.
I'm going to go right on the edge.
Right.
You know, I'm like, no. You don't live on the edge.
Right. You don't, and that's why it's so important. Every
right.
man, if you're listening out there,
That's
you
right.
face temptation.
Yes.
Every man, in some way, you face temptation for something, and then also the other part of that is opportunity. And I've always said you can have temptation and you might be all right, and you can have opportunities and you might be all right. But where temptation meets opportunity,
Yes.
now you're in trouble.
Well, that goes back to
Okay.
fleeing.
Exactly.
When we say, the Bible says, flee youthful lust, he's not
Yeah.
just talking about young people.
Yeah.
It's a lust that's youthful.
It's
You
in
run
us.
as fast as you
But
possibly
I love
can.
what you like. Keeping the door as younger. Like I'm just gonna. If you're a teacher,
Yeah.
I mean, especially as a male teacher and a football coach, you're at a place of authority. You're at a place where especially if you're good at your job and you're dependent on, it is not. But one of the things, like, how do you do boundaries? Doors open. Never meet with parents with the doors shut. Now, I didn't do that anyways because I never wanted to get in trouble, but because I'll be done telling you your kids terrible.
We're at a place that our culture, we're forced to do that because our culture has changed so drastically.
100%.
Well, and it's become easier for me. And I'll tell you a scary part though is when I started as a younger guy, like trying to include my wife in that aspect of it, because I'd made once we give it all to God, dude, there was such a mental release and just peace that I hadn't felt in years.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm intelligent. I'm not crazy, but I'm telling you, there was a point where I was like, this is wild.
Yeah.
This is not worth any part of.
I know sometimes we think that we are the covering for our wives, but our wives are covering for us.
Man,
They protect us. There's been many times my wife walks up to me and she goes, "You need to walk with me."
Oh,
around
yeah,
here."
they're the
I
voice
go,
of
"Oh,
reason.
Okay.
Like
She's
Pilate's wife tried to be him.
You don't know. You don't see it.
that's what
because
I'm
we're not
saying.
looking for it.
Because they have different perspectives.
I'm not looking for it.
I'm just
Because they have different
bebopping, shaking
perspectives.
babies,
Yeah,
and
well,
kissing
that's-
hands.
So I'm just living life.
And Emily's like, let's go.
100%. Well, I want to stress this point because I think it's a key point, because we talk about things and try to help men. You're dealing with temptation. Do this, do this, do this. And obviously we need to pray. We need accountability.
Yes.
We need each other.
We need editability.
Exactly.
We'll talk about that later.
But the big thing is, I believe, like I was talking about, temptation and opportunity coming together. You see people getting close to that line, like you was talking about. And I try to teach my kids. I tell them all the time. I tell them a story about a young man I preach his funerals from Picayune years ago. Great young man. I mean, at 20 years old, had a house paid for. He was an unbelievable young man. And made it. And look, he didn't drink. He didn't do any of that. But one day he decided to pick up some friends from a party who was. And he got so close, he said, "I'll try it one time." And then he got drunk and he ran off the side of the road to Texas Flat and killed himself.
Wow.
And I share that story with my children. And I'm like, okay, we're not going to talk about just, is it wrong to drink?
Yeah.
But how close do you want to get to it?
Yeah.
Well, that's a hard life to live in, especially today. So, but if you don't set boundaries, just like Ty was talking about, when I was pastoring, I did the same thing. I would not meet a woman. There was a situation, this woman was 63 years old. We was going to meet, and I said, I can't meet you by yourself. But it seems crazy, but I had set the boundary. It's already done. If we're going to meet, I'm going to meet with another man. And if you stay committed to that up front, then you don't allow temptation and opportunity to come together.
Yeah.
I'll share one thing that Dad always talks about with, I think he talked with you on the podcast, was, parenting, how to parent, he said one thing him and his wife did was what? They wrote down a vision.
Yep.
Okay. One of the things that I did that personally helped, and it goes with how do you set the boundaries? Okay.
Right.
Well, let's reverse engineer it. I'm going to
Because
reverse
it's different
engineer.
for everybody.
I
Everybody don't
want
have
to
the same
look
ones.
like this. We know we're all going to get tempted. It don't matter if you're 60 to 15, you will. Okay. I want this response when hit with whatever this temptation is, especially, I mean, you know, this type of sexual, whether it be porn, whether it be another lady coming on, or, you know, whatever it is. Okay, so if I know I want to be these things, then I'm going to set out a vision. And if you write it, because I did, and it changed everything, like, because it makes the decision before what you said. You made the decision 20 years before you ever did it.
That's right.
Never had to act on it.
Yeah.
And so if I'm so made my decision because I want to be A, B, C, then the vision dictates that I don't, you know, if I know I struggle with pornography, and I don't want to be that one, well, then I know there's certain things I'm not going to be awake at 2 a.m. just scrolling on the internet. I'm not saying delete your app, bash your computer. That's unrealistic.
Right.
It really, Dad would disagree.
Yeah, well,
Dad would disagree. Yeah.
here's one of the things
That'll be like,
Your
"See that
arm
hand
offends
is
you,
right."
cut it off.
Years
your
ago,
eyes.
I heard, and this guy's passed away. He was a youth pastor back in the day. Actually, he started a church, and his son, Judah Smith, is the pastor of it now. And that's Wendell. And he said this: the greatest deterrent to sin is destiny.
Yes.
That's good.
And when I heard that, I was a young guy. I was like, "Oh my God, yes." So for me, a lot of the temptations went because I'm running. And I'm like, I'm looking at the goal line. I'm looking at the destiny. And yes, something's here and something's here, but my eyes are straight ahead.
That's right.
I'm not looking at this. I'm not looking to the right or
It's
left.
kind of like football, right?
That's right.
The only way I could ever get to an end zone is I have to have sidelines. You think about it, if there was no boundaries, I'd be so busy going east and west instead of going to the end
I
zone.
mean, if y'all are going to make logic,
You know, so we relate to that. You can relate to football.
With that, then yes, you're absolutely correct.
Well, think about
So sidelines are good.
yes,
Boundaries are good.
Absolutely.
They don't hinder us. They actually
it
help
gets us to go in the right direction.
Well, and I also think that like bashing your computer, just like doing things like that to such a degree, like that's not necessarily dealing with the issue.
Bingo.
Come on, man.
I think that is a
You're
temporary.
taking a
opportunity
symptom.
away and not dealing with the issue.
Yeah.
Well, it's almost like you take care of the symptoms and not the.
Right.
The root of the cause.
Well, see, that goes back to where Dan was like, okay, whack 'em, like, what?
The root is you. The root is
The
you.
heart of man is desperately wicked.
You're the problem.
God.
Like,
The root
I
is you.
most certainly am not.
Well, it's
So loud.
it is. But I think it's important for us to realize that boundaries are necessary.
Yeah.
When God made man, he made him. I call it the making of a man. One of the things, you had the breath of God, you had the blessings of God, then you had the boundaries of God. He said, don't eat that tree. You can have everything else, just don't eat. What's amazing is the one tree, he said, don't, we ended up doing it. And I think that we have that tendency, like even if we set a boundary, we're always looking over to the sidelines because what you just said, what's the greatest deterrent of sin? That was awesome. Destiny.
Yeah.
Oh, if I'm looking at the end zone,
Bro, that's
I
huge.
can't see it. I think so many times the devil says, look over here. Look at this. Look at it. And you get so busy looking, it starts leaning you towards that direction.
That's right.
Yeah.
But God created the boundary just to get to the promised land.
That's
For our eyes to stay. The whole reason of boundaries there is just to get us where he wants us to go. And so keeping our eyes on what God has for our life, like that destiny, that vision.
And
is
I love,
important.
What's cool is about the vision, the destiny is sometimes like, one of the things that I'll bring it back to the number one, the relationship is, dude, you have something so cool like what happened this last weekend.
Yep.
Oh, it just like I said, give me a water pistol. Like I am so like, God, what else are you gonna do? Because that's cool. Like that's what I feel is hard for like I like to know. I got I got to know. I'm very analytical. I want to know. I want to know where I'm going to end. It's asinine to think I'm going to end here.
Analytical? Oh, that's not my wife. Okay.
Oh, that's what my wife.
All this time.
But I'm
here's-
telling you,
You go, I want to know. I got to know. And this is what God told me. You don't have to know anything other than what I want you to know. So do you trust me? And I'm telling you, that got to a place with my daughter, Haley, who has seizures and stuff. And we would never leave her alone, ever, because we were afraid something would happen, she'd die. And God told me one day, he goes, do you trust me with your daughter? And I go, obviously, because you're asking me, I don't. And I go, he goes, I will take her whether you're here or whether you're not.
That's right.
So do you trust me?
Yeah.
I said, I do from this day forward. not knowing
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
the Lord was speaking to my wife the exact same thing.
Wow.
Amen. That's
So
good.
3 days later, I found out. So what I'm saying is, I'm not saying that I got to know, because I'm one of those guys. I just got to know. I want more from more.
Yes.
Which goes back to lust.
Mm-hmm.
I'm lusting after knowledge. I'm lusting after. So God's like, okay, where am I in all this? I thought I was the center of all your heart. I'm like, well, obviously, I
Well,
am.
you are. You created the knowledge. Therefore, I want the knowledge
We can
that you
justify
created.
anything we want to.
Yeah.
But it just helps with the vision, because I struggle with, hey, I don't know where I'm running, because we just said it at the beginning, right? God did something we didn't even know we could ask for.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And it
He
was
goes above and beyond.
and it was
Exactly.
so cool.
And
So
I want to hammer that point, Michael, because somebody's listening. They're saying, okay, that sounds good. Got to have destiny vision, but I don't feel like I have any.
Yeah.
So it's just easy to turn to the temptation.
Yeah.
But I want to tell whoever's listening, just like what happened with our man this week,
dude,
because it seemed, when I'm talking about he was staring the Red Sea in the face and the enemy was on his back and it felt like there was no hope, it was there. But God parted Red Sea, and he's got a destiny and a hope for every single one of us. That's why we're
right,
still
yeah.
breathing.
that's right.
And so we just need to know that God, the boundaries, the standards, the things he puts in our life is just to get us to go where and get us to see the vision that he has for our life.
That's right.
So let's go into the big topic. One of the, honestly, was probably the one that was the most shared as far as what they wanted to, the question they had as far as what we struggle as men and what would they wanted to hear about. And it's dealing with temptation, but it's more specific. It's in the area of pornography. And obviously we know that this is kind of taboo when it comes to men. Like, we all know
Especially
the struggle.
in the church.
We all know the
Especially
struggle.
in the church.
Well, especially in the church, because you step on holy ground, and we know that, oh, that's not right. So I would never even, like, we don't even talk about it, which almost tells you you're guilty. It's like when the kids come in the room, you ask who's in there, it's quiet. Like, you know who's guilty.
Nobody's in here.
So the question obviously is just, we know that it's rampant even in the church. We know why. I mean, we have phones that you can look at it and you have access anytime you want.
And it comes looking for you.
It looks, it is. There's no doubt. I mean, it'll come in your face when you're not ready for it.
But that's also intentional on a lot of the software that's written, because they know that, and they
Yeah.
know that, and they're capitalizing on a temptation,
Yeah.
and they know that, and that's where I believe the enemy,
Sex sells.
the enemy knows that. So he's going, and does that relieve responsibility?
No.
Absolutely not. Which goes back to the boundaries.
Yeah.
You know, I've had to deal with this my whole entire life. When I got my first computer, I was so excited. Man, and the internet, I could find anything. So I went and typed in my daughter's name, and it come up, Haley was some kind of artificial intelligence. This is back in 97, 98. Oh, this is cool. I typed in my daughter Bethany, and Bethany Warfare Center come up. I typed my wife's name up. It was a porn site. I was like, obviously it wasn't my wife, but I was like, oh my gosh, where did that come from?
I didn't know where it was going.
Where are we going?
Here's the thing is, in my innocence,
Yeah.
and Satan don't care
No,
if you're
that's
innocent or not. All his job is to come and steal, kill, and destroy.
Yeah.
That's right.
And I still have to deal with it.
Yeah.
I wish I didn't. You know, I'm freaking old. Who deals with that? Old people do too.
Yeah.
You know, but my wife knows that. She knows that, hey, we've got these issues, so we talk about it, and that means, yes, am I vulnerable? Do I go share everything? No, I don't.
Yeah.
But I'm like, hey, you know, I need your help. I need you to pray for me.
Yeah.
I need you to stand in the gap with me. That goes back to relationships, not just relationships between us, relationships with our wife that's deep, that's honest, that's real.
Yeah.
And we don't have a lot of that. We have a lot of facades, we have a lot of fake stuff, but we've got to be real with one another if we want to overcome.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, but let's say what are, because I mean, I feel like as married men and then even single, it's you know, as far as relationally, like you were just talking about communicating, it's a little bit of different conversation. But even on this topic, whether they're single or married, as men, what are the dangers of pornography? And the reason I bring that up is because there would be some who would suggest that, I mean, really what's wrong with it.
I'll go ahead. So let's play. This is gonna be fun. This is gonna be a great episode. It's gonna be a great episode.
Yeah, I'm a little scared.
No,
Let's play. I mean, we're talking.
Okay.
Hold on.
No, that's right.
What are we
So-
talking about here?
No, my dad watches this, so we'll keep you know. Can't be having Sunday evenings like, boy, don't ever say, you know. No. But what we do here, as a young man, you want to be able to meet the needs of your wife.
Yeah.
Okay? Let's say you're single, which I didn't meet my wife till I was 24, babe. 24.
You got it right.
I was 24.
He knows.
Yeah.
He's got it.
That's right. It's 24. So that means there's a period. Okay. So let's say I want to be able to meet her needs, blow her mind. I want her to lust after me or to want it. Right. That's a sickness. But
desires you.
That's right. Thank you. Well, I mean, if you don't practice, if you don't build up, it's just like running. You got to have stamina, right? I mean, if we're going to talk about it, you got to have the stamina. Well, how do you? Well, I'm certainly not going to go find another lady. That would be disastrous,
Right.
Because we're going to go right into like what we just. That's sin.
Right.
Yeah.
I'll never do that. So what I do? Okay, oh, I got you. Like, whatever. Start looking at porn. Great. Okay. Well, how long does that go on for?
Yeah.
How long? Because let's say the first time you don't meet it, you're like, okay, now we're gonna times 2, times 4, times 6, till I meet the standard. Then all of a sudden,
When is it enough?
bingo. Then if I'm stressed, or what if she's, because, and I'll say this, Emily, I love you and you don't do this, but yeah, what if she's mad at you? Because let's be honest, they control it. We can say, I get it when I want. No, you don't. If you're mad, I mean, they decide. If they don't decide, it's rape. Right. There you go. So they control it. What if she's mad for y'all ain't talking for 2 weeks, 3 weeks?
Well, first of all, we got to change how we view what we're viewing sex as. View is that animals have sex.
Yes.
Humans make love.
Yeah.
There's a big difference. Because if you're just having sex with your wife, you're no different than the dogs and the animals outside.
That's right.
I said because that God gave us that. That is something that is very intimate, and that's the most vulnerable you'll ever be with another human.
That's
is
right.
when you're having sex with them.
And it does change the relationship. It does.
100%.
It's wonderful. Like you feel
And
like
God
I can
wants
talk
that.
more to you.
So you're saying sex is okay?
Sex is awesome within the boundaries that God set it up.
Right.
And I thank God for it all the time.
So
And I even tell my wife that. That's when she says, "You're an idiot."
But
But I'm yours.
but I'm yours. You said yes to me.
So who's the idiot here?
But one of the things that you go back, because that's the real thing. Like I know, like it really started when when I was a senior Snapchat. And some of these other filters where even so much when I was teaching, there were some things that I would pass by freshmen saying where even I was 28. Yeah. I'm not that far removed. And I was like, oh, you said the part out loud. You said, so where is it? Is it bad? Yeah, you want to know why? Crazy thing, we're sitting in here. Every time you look, because you're going to find what you like, whether it be, you're going to find your niche. It's going to happen. They make it that way. You're going to find what scratches your itch, okay? Every time you do, you just...
Yeah, we know.
Bingo, okay? So you create, your brain cells, you create a ditch. Think of the Suez Canal or whatever canal you want, Panama Canal, whatever canal.
You're programming your...
You just dug a ditch. The more you do it, you dig, and people say, well, why can't I just stop? What's wrong with me? Well, think about this, bro. Maybe not anything's wrong with you, but maybe for 5 years in college, 2 days, 2 times a day, and then sometimes maybe 3, and you're digging this ditch. Well, now all of a sudden, you got the Panama Canal that's 75 feet deep, that's got these 3 different locks and vaults. Baby, you don't just put a little piece of wood in there and says, I've dammed it up.
That's right.
Thank you that it's over. Thank you, Lord. And I'm not demeaning what the Lord can do. He absolutely will release you.
Yeah.
But sin, and I've personally struggled with it. We'll say this is where this is coming from. It is not easy. No. You want to know why you don't let it go or you don't start it? Baby, because you don't just say, I'm done. Thank you, Jesus, I'm done. No, you got to have the locks and vaults you had to get in.
Yeah.
You give it all to the Lord, but you also got to have locks and
He goes
vaults.
back to those boundaries.
Yeah. Well,
Relax.
I'm gonna speak from a not a spiritual perspective, but from a biological perspective. If you've listened to neuroscientists talk, like I know Andrew Huberman, he's big on YouTube. He talks about not even from any spiritual concept. As far as I know, I don't even know what his view is spiritually, but just as a biological, as a doctor, neuroscience, if you study the neural pathways, what happens? What makes pornography so addictive? It's the same thing that makes cocaine and meth addictive. It produces an insane amount of dopamine in our brain. And when dopamine is highly produced and released, it's a sensation that you want to feel again.
Yes.
Now, God created our brain to have that because he wanted us to have that moment, that the most special with our spouse. And then we have dopamine kicks for like when we have success. If I go out to, just to go primitive, if I was a hunter, I need food for my family. Well, the neural pathways are energized, like me seeing the deer, right? It energizes me to go get the food, and then I'm rewarded when I do it, so that I go do it again.
That's right.
It's a reward system. Well, when we say, this is the dangerous part about the pornography is, first of all, talking about even the stamina and all the other stuff, you would think that would actually help you. But all the science tells you that biologically, not from a spiritual perspective, but biologically, when you do that, it actually hurts you. Because you set a threshold so high that nothing's good enough.
Your wife will
And
never
on a
meet it.
different perspective, what you've rewarded your brain is to be a voyeur, not a participant.
Yeah.
You have now your brain wants to be rewarded for being a voyeur instead of being a first person partner in the relationship.
Nice.
So you will actually struggle more in that condition just from a biological standpoint.
But we have a culture that is constantly
tell us that.
just bombarding us. I mean, there's a freaking movie on
Yeah.
Netflix called Voyeur. They have tons, and it's like, oh, it's normal.
Right.
So they're creating a culture that what we see as abnormal as normal. So you got a whole generation of young men going, there's something must be wrong with you.
That's right.
Because you don't do that.
That's right.
So something wrong with you. So
That's right.
because normal basically is what everybody's doing.
Right.
Yeah.
It's the normalcy of it. And when we do stuff like that and go, no, we don't do this, and they're like, what's wrong with you? I'm like, no, it's not what's wrong with me. It's what's wrong with the culture.
Yeah.
So I don't necessarily, and not only that, there's a lot of money in it. I mean, I've heard this saying, follow the money. There's money in it.
It's the biggest business in the world, other than drugs, pornography. I mean, which you could say is a drug.
So instead of fighting it, you just join them. That's what a lot of people go, like, you can't fight them, join them.
Yeah.
Well, it's a hard fight. I mean, let's just be honest. It's right in front of our face. We talked about the banner, temptation, opportunity, however you want to do it. Just like Cody brought up, we could break the phone and all, but this stuff's still going to be there. But we are living in a different time. We need to recognize, I mean, let's just be real. Back in our day, you had to go to a store. You had to get behind the counter some kind of way.
And they had them covered up. Just the word is everything else, a brown thing on it, and So,
but it was just a different time. So to help men with that, because it's literally like the drug is just right here available at all time, and the sensation it brings. So now the question is, okay, we see the dangers of it. I mean, it affects your relationship, affects your marriage, affects your mood, affects everything. It tells your brain, this is the biggest thing. This is what I heard my man, the psychologist, talk about him all the time. Y'all know Jordan Peterson.
Oh, yeah.
So Jordan Peterson.
Okay. Well,
So he was talking about this. He said the real danger of it isn't even on the sexual side. It's that your brain has created pathways that says it rewards you getting something and not having to do anything for it. There's no sacrifice.
sign me up.
So now, right.
That's what most men think. Yeah.
Well, it's the easy way.
It's for free.
That's right.
But you've literally programmed your brain that way.
See, that's what's scary to me is because as coaching, like you don't know this. Like, and that's what I was just telling him, like, we had Snapchat as a senior. Facebook was what? Freshman-ish in high school.
It's been a while.
Even then, we had MySpace. Now, my wife did MySpace. I'm much too young.
Wait, I had MySpace.
That's right. So, but I mean, it was becoming readily available, especially if you I mean, if you were any type of, had any kind of game,
Yeah.
you know, and so nobody ever told us. In fact, the first time I learned that coming off of caffeine, you want to know how I found out pornography was so bad for your brain? I was looking at coming off of sugar when I was doing like no sugars, no nothing. They were talking about all these different things are coming off of sugar is like coming off of cocaine.
Oh yeah.
And then I found something else and I came to the church and they had the thing. It was like, it's the same exact thing as coming off of sugar and cocaine as trying to come off of a point because it builds. And that's when he showed these neural pathways and he showed one that had just started. And then he showed somebody that had been watching porn from about the age 12 and he was 36. Y'all, he had a strand that thick. I was like a quarter inch thick and I was like, immediately, it was like I was a whack-a-mole, son.
So again, though, how do the men out there, they propose a question. I'm assuming the question's been proposed because they know they struggle with it like most men.
How do you know?
And they want to overcome it.
Let's go back to your
solution.
original question. Your original question about importance of relationships.
Come on.
Because Satan wants to isolate.
Yep.
Because if he can isolate you, then you feel alone.
Hit on that for a second, Todd, because let's be honest. I mean, when does this happen? You know what I mean?
You don't do it in the crowd.
You're a little
me
isolated.
and Cody went and had lunch the other day.
Me and the guys, I'm like, no, you're always alone.
Yeah.
You're always alone. And I'm not saying that you don't ever be alone, but my point being is that you've got to have people in your life that will not just call you out, but you give the freedom to edit your life. That's right. I want to make you better. Right. I'm not here to tell you what you're doing wrong. That's right. Yeah, you know what's wrong. Jesus never had to tell a sinner they were a sinner. Yeah. He had to tell the religious people they were sinners. Yeah. I said, so it's not about me saying, Micah, this is wrong in your life. I'm here going, hey, Micah, we see it, but let me edit your life.
Yeah.
That's right. Because when you edit something, you always make it better.
That's really good.
And the edibility, you got to trust somebody.
That's not true to me.
But that's really good though, because there's a point where, I mean, like if Cody I just met him, he randomly came at me hard and was like, boom, 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 hammer. I'm like, hold up, swole up. Like, like, chill the chesticles out just a little bit. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, you go back to the gym, take the frustrations out somewhere else. Don't come at me 38 kinds of hot. Like, I mean, really. But if there was a relationship, because editing, that's a really good way to put it. If I think, because if I'm letting you edit me. That means I've already spent time creating something.
A relationship.
And you gotta trust somebody.
And I'm allowing you just to go, we're gonna hack this part off. Yeah. We're gonna wipe this out.
That's right.
That's
scary.
But
you become better.
Right.
You become better because of it. And that's the thing is we're looking and going, I'm going to hold people accountable for what they do wrong. How about holding people accountable for what they do right and going there, it's wrong, but I'm going to help you fix that so you're better.
And some people may have well intentions in wanting to hold someone accountable, but they're heaping shame on top of someone as well.
There you go. And that's the thing that people struggle with the most, especially and when you're dealing with pornography.
Yeah.
So I never have found not one success story where there was just a accountability partner between, not one. Now, in what you were talking about,
it's different.
Whole different side of, but if we're like, okay, you struggle with it, I struggle, we're going to be accountability partners. I'm going to call you to you. I have not found one thing, even personally, terrible, not a good, but you know what changed the game? I had somebody that spoke into my life, not at my faults.
Yeah. That's
edited. That's what hit, because I trusted him with everything he started speaking into it rather than at it.
Yeah.
And one thing that we did was he was like, okay, let's look, because one thing I started doing at night, night. You know what? Because a lot of times, look, my mind races. Sometimes I need something to take this down about 7 notches from the day. So I'm getting on. I'll start reading. I'll read this article. I'll read this article. Well, what are you at? Did you know that biologically Your defenses at 11 o'clock, your mental blocks at 11 o'clock in your mind, like your prefrontal cortex, they're asleep, they're gone. That's why all our parents, our dads say, don't nothing good happen after midnight, boy. Technically, he was right. There's lots of
Experientially, he was right.
But so what did I say? He said, how about this? Let's get a book.
A book.
Let's get a book.
Not a digital book.
That's right. That was the thing. He said,
you're still connected.
so we started reading this What's Open, More with Four, like these different football books. And we started going, at the end of the week, what did you see? So it wasn't a Bible session. Was the Lord the center of this? Yes, because I'm praying, God, take this temptation. Why are you doing? He's not going to do it.
Yeah.
Okay, so what do we recenter? God, be bigger.
That's right.
Be bigger. Like
somebody said that once.
If I let this,
that's in you.
Yeah.
He that's in the
freaking Paul, son, in Romans. You can't get out of Romans. But as I started saying, be bigger, and started really trusting him and saying, okay, you want it?
Yeah.
Here's the ugly.
Yeah.
And I can't. I know.
You just have to come to the decision that's me.
That's right.
Not
it's
him.
me.
He
No,
already
God,
knew
it's
it.
not me. It's that problem. It's that. But
Choosing to reveal.
what was so cool was I had one human. I had a dude, I had one man, and he's a little bit older, and we were great friends. But I trusted him enough to say, dude, it is overwhelming.
Yeah.
How much because like what you say, if all I think about is, I'm not going to watch porn, I'm not going to watch porn, I'm not going to watch porn. What are you thinking about?
Porn.
The whole time. You're like, God, I thank you that I'm not going to be lusted by Todd, even though there's an extremely handsome haircut. Look, God, thank you. You know what I'm saying? But if the whole time I walk around going, hey, not going to do, not going to do.
Yeah.
No, that's true.
Gee whiz, it drives, I can't move.
You know what it means to magnify the Lord?
No.
It makes you make him bigger than anything else in your life. So your focus is so much bigger. So, if I put my hand up to my face like this,
right.
all I can see is my hand. My hand becomes the biggest thing in the room when it's actually not. So when we magnify the Lord in our life, when David said that in the book of Psalms, magnify the Lord, like make him bigger than everything else. You exalt him above everything else, even those things. You're not going, I'm going to exalt God higher than pornography.
Yep.
You just exalt God.
Yeah.
So he becomes higher than all the other
focal
stuff.
point
So I don't
changes.
necessarily want that. My desire is not that anymore. My desire is him.
Yeah.
So
right.
same thing I do with my wife. My wife is my desire. And then, do I have temptations still coming after? Yeah, they're knocking on the door. Hey, I'm here, I'm back.
That's right.
Like, leave.
Absolutely. Well, it goes back, like you said to before, having somebody, we use the accountable term, but it's just knowing somebody's there.
That's right.
Yeah.
And they're speaking life.
Yeah.
I had a good friend of mine, I'm not going to share who, but, dealing with the same issue and, basically confided in me about it and was wanting to overcome it. And we prayed about it. And, God showed him, he did a thing where he sent like everything he looked on his phone, computer, he would go to my email and I could see it and all this stuff. For him, that was just his way of thinking. But what really got him, he's overcome it for years, is I would just knew about it. So I would just like send him a word, like talk to him, speak life into him, just what
That's
y'all
right.
talking about.
That's right.
The edibility thing. Now, I could
That's
say, and I think this is important, you do need people who are there that you trust and love and respect enough to say, hey, you're doing wrong.
That's right.
Hey,
Call you out.
call you out.
That's right.
You need that's what brothers do.
That's right.
So that part was important, but once you know, you don't keep pointing to it.
Yeah.
You give them the hope. We talked about the destiny and all that stuff. So I think it's important. We're going to finish up with this last thing because we're getting out of time, but we're going to finish up with one of the questions that was asked. And I think it's a good way to finish up and wrap everything together is, how do I what does success as a man look like? Because, we talk about success a lot. What does success as a man look like, and how do I achieve that success? So who wants to tackle that one?
Go, Cody.
He put you on the spot.
I know, that's a big one. I would say, like, personally, so, like, for me, success is doing what I know, like, in life in general, like doing the right things with an end goal. So like take for example, like work, whatever I'm doing, like the job that I'm currently doing is not what I envision myself to be currently doing, but I'm going to do it with the best that I have,
Right.
regardless of, you know, whether or not this is where I currently want to be or not. So success, like for me, I mean, if I think about the question is like, am I doing the right things, even though it's not what I want to be doing?
Right. Right. Basically, in a nutshell, your will be done, God, not mine.
Yeah.
So it's not my will be done. It's thy will be done.
Yeah.
It's not the me thing. It's
You
your
have-
fault.
you have
One
a-
letter.
You have a Y in both. Close enough. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think about, I remember hearing this preacher was in Texas during Hurricane Katrina. I was in Texas with my aunt,
Ugh.
with this big church, and he preached, and he said when he was younger, in fact, you know Robert Jeffries, the guy, you see him sometimes, but so he was his son, he was a junior, and he was preaching about, he wanted to be like Joe Namath when he was growing up, you know, he wanted to be like Joe Namath, wanted to be the quarterback, and I could relate because as I played sports, I wanted to be like Walter Payton, you know. I even wore the shoes like Walter Payton. I had the jumpsuit. Sweetness, man.
Oh,
you know, my wife says, never mind. But I have nicknames. We're moving on. So anyway, you know, we want to be this, want to be that. And he's just basically said, man, what greater man could you possibly be than Jesus, right?
Mm.
And the whole thing was about the man I want to be. Man, I want to be. And obviously, that's the pinnacle we just strive to be. But I just, in my life, we live in an area that's a little bit different. You know, if you've been to third world, I've had the opportunity and blessed to be able to go to other countries,
Yeah.
poor countries, and realize that the American dream of, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with having the things we have. I'm saying, but that's not what really success. I know plenty of people. I know one I've talked to recently who's a multi-millionaire and is miserable.
Yeah.
So the question is like success is being like Jesus.
Mhm.
You know, that's the easiest way I look like is I think about my life. Okay, you know, we always say, well, what would Jesus do? But I even go to like, what would Jesus think? What does he want me to do? And that goes to what you just said. Your will be done, God, not my will be done. But for people who are listening, that sounds cliche. So
Does.
I try to use like real life examples. So like, what does success look like?
What happens when you've acquired everything you've ever wanted, whenever you've gotten everything you ever wanted, you got all the relationships, you got the money, you got the house, you got the cars, you got the position, you got all that, and you still are empty.
Yeah.
All the success that the American dream is said to have brought leaves you empty. Yeah. Because first of all, success does not equal God's approval.
Yeah. Come on.
I learned that years ago because I was striving to be the very best that I could be. I was going to be the best youth pastor. I was going to make it and see young people get saved.
Yep.
And I had some success in this world. But at the end of the day, God looked at me and says, did you do what I told you to do? Mm-hmm. Did you obey? Yeah. Well, yes, sir. He goes, then you're successful. The outcome is up to me, not you.
That's right.
You obey, and that's success. For me, obedience is success.
Amen.
And I don't attach my identity to what I succeed at.
Right.
Just because I'm good at something.
Right.
And I'm telling you that.
Ready to leave now.
From 58 years of being alive, I mean, just what we're doing right now with that building, I could attach some kind of self-worth. If we get it done, look what I did. And God's like, really?
Yeah,
really?
You know,
really? You did
at,
this?
You look
I'm like,
at
no, I didn't.
How you get a bunch of guys together. Let's say we never knew, we don't know each other. Mm-hmm. You know, we go hang out, a bunch of guys. Hey, my name's Mikey Hickman. Hey, well, I'm Tycho. Hey, Tycho. What do you do? Mm-hmm. Yep. What do you do? Yep. Because that is one, if you're a dude, you're a provider. Mm-hmm. There is a strong sense of self-worth in your ability to provide.
That's not who we are.
But that is who we tie our identity as, is like, because
it's like an instinct too.
I mean, he's throwing Todd's over here throwing zingers that are like, whew, just got over that. Thank you, Jesus. Well, because that's who. I mean, football. I even told my wife before we got engaged. I was like, look, you need to understand something. Football has been my wife, my love, my life, my everything for 24 years. I love her. She loves me. And you can ask her. We had this conversation. Like, we may have to leave. We may have to move. There may be some of this, like this whole thing about how we dictate our life around football because I am a football coach player. It's who I am to the core in my fabric. Buddy, when God started knocking on that door.
Yeah.
I did the same thing. I did the same thing, said the same thing to my wife. I just simply used ministry.
Yeah,
See,
right.
I said the same thing.
Right.
We may have to move
Like, that's
because we
your
got to go
life.
where the people
That's right.
are.
That's
That's who I am, and you know. It's
And
not.
see,
if you
success to me,
If you circle back around to it, though, it's like success is one of those things where it's like, well, what do you define
Come on.
success as? Because
There you go.
I can look at your life and be like, man, I think you're successful, and you feel like I'm nowhere near
Right.
what I would deem
That's
to be
right.
successful.
Right.
And I feel like it's this never-ending ladder that keeps.
That's right.
I
You
agree.
keep going up it, but there never gets to a point to where like someone who makes $1 million in comparison to the salary that I'm making, I'm like, you're doing great.
Yeah.
And they're like, I want another dollar.
I need
and
more.
it never ends.
Yep, and that's right. That's
Well,
exactly what I was looking for, Cody, because if we look at success, if we have all these different definitions, then what really is success? Well, there's only one person, and as Christians, we have to believe,
Yeah.
if there's one validator of our life, there's one amen and faithful and true witness. The only one who's going to say, well done,
That's right.
then it's what he determines success
That's right.
is.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what I love about it. You know, you said like obey and do what's right.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's some out there who's like, you know what? I don't have a lot of money. I've made a lot of mistakes. You know, maybe you haven't obeyed. The Bible says, God, the one who says this, says a righteous man
That's right.
is one who falls 7 times. That means it's over and over again. Doesn't mean like I obey, but there's plenty of times I have not and you haven't.
Yeah.
But he says he gets up again.
Yeah, it doesn't say perfect.
And he
man.
continues
That's right.
to try to, hey, God, I want to just say yes to God. I trust you. I'm going to do what you asked me to do. But it's a walk. So like if I feel like I haven't at some point, it doesn't mean now it's over with. I blew
Yeah.
it
I'm a failure.
and I'm a
Yeah.
failure and I have no success.
That's right.
You know, it's just saying, okay, I messed up, Lord. I repent of it. I'm moving on. And God looked at Job and he looked at him at the time he lost everything.
That's
Yeah.
just-
See, now if your identity was with the stuff,
You're right.
your career,
Job's done.
well, now Job's done.
Yeah.
He's done.
But God said he looked at Job after, even he's seen it after he lost everything. And he said, he is a man of integrity. And he's what he said, there's no one like Job in the whole earth.
Wow.
He's a man of integrity.
But by the
And
world
so
standards,
here's-
he was not successful.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
here's what I'll
Not at
put,
all.
because I was wrapped up in what Cody said, especially as a young coach. The Lord was very gracious. It was not by me. He was very gracious in placing me in positions to be able to be successful.
Yeah.
I was young and had success. And then it turned from he to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very quickly,
Yeah.
very quickly, the grind, and I
Yeah.
was wrapped up. And one of the things that I think success is now, like after we've shattered the whole me part,
Yeah.
is number one, did I make my wife what he intended her to be when he said, I made her for you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's number one. Did she reach her God-given potential and ability? And I'm pretty
Sanctify your
sure
wife.
Todd and BJ were the ones that said that when we were first getting married. He said, and that has still scared the fire out of me to this.
God
because
told me it was my
that's-
responsibility to make sure my wife is
right.
successful. I'm like, I can't even make myself
That's what I'm saying. Like, God, I can't even change a battery in a car. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean,
I'm a
it was
man.
terrible. I know it was awful, and I was. But number two, and this comes from Dad, is am I launching my kids in a direction to where they run into God wholeheartedly?
Yeah.
Right.
Am I, and that's one thing we talked about being, I use launching pad, Dad uses arrows. One thing that's scary, baby, by the time you're 18, 19 and your prefrontal cortex is all, you've already been in flight for 18 years.
Yep. Yep.
Change an arrow mid-flight.
Yep.
Tell me how that wanders.
Yep.
And so now my idea of success is, man, if my marriage can look like what my dad and mom's marriage looks like in 30 years,
Right.
if my sons will love me as much as me and my brothers love going and hanging out with my dad and mom.
Yeah.
And if they strive, we're not all perfect. I mean, each of us have had our own tears. Look, Mom, you're sane if you talk to yourself. The insane people don't talk to them. Lord, Mom's done had a prayer meeting every day with that windowsill. You know?
Talking to God.
Ain't no doubt. But if the way that my mom used to be, as far as, like she was quiet, not really outgoing, and to look how Dad would literally push her, like, you are going to do this. You're going to. Well, now, son, she's got 4 Bibles, she's got 4 notebooks, and she's going to blood the Jesus all over you now. But that didn't, like, I'm not gonna. That was not her strength. Right. But now I can see how he's made her to where. I'm using some of the things she used with some of the people I'm like, golly. But that's what success now is. Can the Lord say, I created her for that purpose and she hit it because you made sure she did?
Right. And that's good.
There's different levels, different times in our life.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, Ty. I mean, I think success, because when we say your will be done, God, and his will's done, well, his will for you is not the same for me. It's just not for Cody. And a married man and a single man and his.
No, he doesn't.
Like, let's be honest.
No,
like,
I think he wants to.
A lot of times, biblically, we say
money doesn't equal success.
Right, but a lot of times in the church we say, you just chasing after money. Like, for a young guy,
I'll go even further than that, Mike. I've seen people literally say, "Oh, well,
bro,
it's wrong to be great."
No,
you see what I mean? Like literally, like, oh no, It's almost that such humility. A pride, false humility.
That's
like
right.
I'm so pious that I can't be great.
Exactly right.
But God said, Abraham, I will make you great. I will make you. You're going to be successful. I'm going to make you great. But what makes someone great though is this is what it all goes down to. Abraham's the father of faith, right? Because if you go look in Hebrews 11, there's a hall of fame, but it's the faith people. Because God, that's what pleases God. Yeah. And so it's. My faith in God, there's some things that are standing for all of us. Yeah. But his will for us, he has a sovereign will for all of us, but he has a selective will for all of us.
That's right.
It's not all the same.
That's right.
But it's just coming down to God, this is what you want me to do. This is what, look, some of the men, we might not see them successful, we might not, but I can look at certain ones and I want to tell some people who are out there, like, there's people who are millionaires who in God's eyes, they've been very successful because they've had faith.
Yeah.
There's people who didn't have a lot and they're successful because they have faith.
That's right.
The least shall be the greatest.
That's right.
Whether you have a lot of money or you don't.
That's right.
This is what I think happens though, Mike. God wants to bless us with the blessings. But we find our identity and our trust in the blessings instead of the blesser.
That's good.
That's right. That's right.
And so when we get to the point where it's just I got the source, then I can have it or not. I got him.
Bingo.
That's all we need.
And see, I think, and that's one thing that me and my dad always have these great little conversations and arguments because I'm like, you know what, Dad? Like, Emily tried to tell on me. I got pulled over and I'm 30 something years old and I pull my ID out. I'm like, I'm Micah Hickman, Alan Hickman's son. You dang right I'm throwing that thing out there. Now, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Baby. You might get a bigger ticket, you know?
Oh, you're Alan Hickman.
Not only were you speeding, you were also
doubling that one.
Thou shalt not speed.
That's right. That's right. Well, I mean, so sometimes with Dad, there's like, I know there's a right, like you dang right I have a right to be here. You dang right I'm going to be able to speak up in his house. You dang right I'm going to sit at that table. I'm going to show up when he didn't have a steak and get a steak. You know, because that's who I am. But also, I think it's okay. Success is one, yes, everything biblically that we've talked about. But you also have, it is okay to expect, I believe if we're walking right, and y'all may shoot me down, but if we're walking right, we should walk with a little bit better blessing, a bigger light.
Those things come automatically.
We should, and it's okay to be blessed.
Prosper, take this.
Yeah, good. So the whole point of that, man, is that God wants us to prosper. Yeah. He sees in different ways and there's different seasons. But I think if we walk in with God, whether he and the Bible talks about that. Paul talked about he knew what it was to be a base, he knew what it was to be abound, but either way, he was content because godly contentment is a great gain. God, I got you. That's all I need.
See, in Abraham, you pulled that out on purpose. You know how I am
I know
with
how you like Abraham. We can't get in that discussion. Listen, we've had a great discussion, guys.
Yeah,
I want to keep going.
man.
We got several topics to continue to go over as our man Todd is joining us again.
Join us back. He is the important.
Yes, he's the important one.
extremely
He
important.
should have been the
If
moderator.
I told you what, you'd be like, oh.
But I want to say, guys, it was great. We're gonna have to shut it down for this time, but we're gonna do it again because there were several topics that was brought up we didn't even get to.
Let's go.
And guys, look, I want to thank you guys, all the ones who gave us some suggestions and things you want to hear about. Man, we're thankful because this is all to help you, and honestly, it helps us. Right,
Yeah.
just talking about
Helps
it.
me.
So mention in the comments if you got any other things you want us to talk about next time, or anything that you're dealing with, or we can pray for you and help you in any way.
Absolutely.
I want you to know about that. Also, our Kingsman groups, man, look, Monday and Wednesday night at 6. Cody and Micah do a great job. It's awesome. I go to each one. It's a lot of good interaction, and it encourages us as
Good
men.
stuff.
And this Wednesday night, we're having our Men Courage event to try to build these relationships we're talking about and help us get through the things we're dealing with. So make sure you come. It's at 6:30 this Wednesday, right at the Resurrection Life main auditorium.
I got one thing to say. You guys talk almost as much as women do. I'm just saying.
On that note, guys, we appreciate you. God
Enjoy.
bless. We'll see you next time.